cheating accusations, sabotage, gameplay. The 90s and early 2000s were fraught with scandal, and nowhere more so than in elementary school classrooms everywhere as kids tried to earn points through accelerated reading tests. Accelerated reading, or AR as we called it, actually still exists to this day, which shocked me because I'm used to things that I experienced as a child being fully put out to pasture by now, but in this video, we're specifically talking about AR during millennial childhood, when CD players were a coveted prize and we all fought over who got to check out the Harry Potter books from the library. I also have to admit that I started researching for this video just based on a fun memory. I was an AR nerd back in the day, feeling nostalgic for those iconic quizzes and having my picture on the wall in the main hall of the elementary school. And I thought, wouldn't it be cute to do a video about Accelerated Reader for all of my other book lovers? Except the more I dove in, the more I thought, wait, is this the reason I can't sleep at night because I'm so obsessed with needing to perform well in life? Is this the reason I compare myself to others at all times just to make sure I'm keeping up, if not winning? Or else I feel like garbage about myself and completely worthless? Probably not, that's just my own messed up psyche, but I have a hunch that there's a lot of my fellow overachievers out there who absolutely thrived in the competition-style reading world of AR, and probably plenty of you who have terrible memories of the program and learning to hate reading. So let's talk about it. In short, if you haven't heard of it but just like to watch the world burn as I tell you how reading comprehension tests made me unable to rest, AR is a program in schools where you read a book, then take a short quiz at the end. If you do well on the quiz, i.e. if you have understood the book, then you get points, and the points add together, and in AR, points mean prizes. This guy specifically remembers getting a CD player with enough AR points.
Real stuff. So that's how I got a CD player when CD players were a new thing through AR.
Cool.
And I remember the CD player, like it was the model in which if you disturbed it a little bit, it'd mess up your sound. Yeah. And I was really happy about AR and just reading any points.
Yeah, man.
Also, I love how the other guys in this video are just like politely listening and nodding along to him reliving his AR days. Like, wow, that's cool, a CD player. The prizes could be anything. Some schools did candy for the lower level points, and you can have things like field trips to places like Chuck E. Cheese. Does it get more late 90s and early 2000s? It does not.
If you got 100 AR points in the year, they had a sleepover at the school. And in my head, it wasn't because I loved reading, even though I loved reading. It was because when I would take those quizzes, I would get points, and I could turn in those points to buy things in the AR store. Candy. I would buy candy.
It was all about incentivizing a child to read, as well as actually understanding the material, hence the quiz at the end. Each book was worth a certain number of points, and it was categorized to a certain reading level, which would affect the number of points it was worth, which we'll get to in a minute. Now, first I want to talk about the people who loved AR, because I can almost guarantee with frightening accuracy that you are my people. The people who feel like you have to be good at everything and can never make a mistake, and honestly, are still chasing the feeling you got when you won all the awards at school. I was always big into reading from when I was young. My brain just worked in a way that made reading easy for me, and I enjoyed it. My mom would find me when I was little in the walk-in closet reading a book while sitting in a pile of other books that I had torn down from the shelves to find the one I wanted. I remember reading Harry Potter under the covers with a flashlight when I was supposed to be asleep, and I took piano lessons, which I was not as good at reading, and as an award for practicing piano, my mom gave me boxcar children books. I was a little book nerd before you could be a book nerd, and while it gave me special powers on the AR test, I was also painfully shy, the girl who kicked the soccer ball into my team's own goal, and I lacked relative common sense compared to my book smarts, so let's keep it real. Anyway, I was obsessed with AR because I loved to read anyway, so I was going to read the books regardless, and I found it easy to remember what happened, as long as I took the quiz right after. And my school, like many other schools, turns it into one big competition with a leaderboard posted in the main hallway to the school, moving our pictures along the point chart. I don't remember exactly where I was in the chart at all times, times, I just have a snapshot memory of seeing my picture under the 400 category with very few other people in front of me. We got to go into a prize closet to pick out prizes, and there definitely was an AR pizza party at some point in my AR career. So yeah, I thrived with AR, and that's why my nostalgic memories are all sweet. But was that because I loved reading, or was that because I was winning? Is it because I have great memories of how fun it was to take a quiz after reading a book? Or was it because it gave me something I could shine in even though I was terrified to kick the kickball at recess? This type of person came up a lot in my research. The AR overachiever who still to this day remembers specific points, prizes, and the rush to their ego. For example, someone says, I did Gone with the Wind for AR in 6th grade and got a perfect score on the test, so got 65 points in one fell swoop. To remember all these years later how many points you got on Gone with the Wind is such a clear sign of how much the program meant to some people. Someone else put it even more clearly, being a multi-millionaire reader for multiple years in a row had me feeling like the smartest person ever. It's funny, but it's true. Not only was it about being the smartest, but it was about winning, succeeding, being at the top. This woman remembers her quest to essentially get the most AR points in school and the lengths she went to get there.
I don't remember what the prize was, but I do remember that I walked into the library and asked the librarian what book has the most points because I need to win. She handed me Les Miserables. And I don't know if you've ever read Les Miserables, but if you've seen the movie, you know the content is not appropriate for a 9-year-old, and I still won.
This TikTok also just sums it up so clearly. I am the way I am because my elementary school had this program called Accelerated Reader, so I started reading books too old for my age in 1st grade because I wanted to have the most points in class. Without even seeing her other TikToks, we already know that I am the way I am refers to being an overachiever at best and unable to deal with failure at worst. Did this pathological need to win and have the most points and be the best come from programs like AR that fueled our little reader minds to think that having the most points equals we were good and smart and worthy? Or was it the opposite way around? Did the kids who did the best in AR already have that innate fear of failure and desire to be at the top? On the theme of people being impacted well into their adult years by this program, someone else said, I had the highest amount of AR points in school throughout middle school, and I am still chasing that high. It's funny, isn't it? It's just a joke. I'm still chasing that high, meaning that nothing else has come close to matching the feeling of being at the top of that AR chart. But in some ways, it's kind of serious too. I know from my own experience that it can be so easy for me to never be satisfied with my performance or success. The high of performing well is so important because the risk of not performing well, of struggling at something, of not being perfect is a very deep low. Someone else said, I broke 1,000 in 6th grade in February. Then my parents suddenly moved and I never got to accept the award they give to the highest point kid. I am still mad. 15 years later. There were a few people, I'm sure, the book talkers and bookstagrammers of today, that really just always loved reading and weren't completely insane like I was, and that love for reading never left them. This woman had an accelerated reader shirt made on Etsy, which is the most millennial thing I've ever seen, and also awesome. We all need one.
Hey book nerds, look at this. I had this t-shirt made on Etsy.
But for most people, even if you had the highest amount of AR points or have fond memories of being on the leaderboard, there may have been a more sinister side to it. Studies show that reading incentive programs like AR are not always great at developing lifelong readers because it attaches so much to the prize and the competition. Did we read books because we wanted to read them and dive into the stories, or did we try and read Gone with the Wind in order to get massive amounts of points so our little elementary school selves could get the reading gold medal? Personally, I never fell out of love with reading because of AR. I benefited with pizza parties because I already liked reading. But do I read these days? Not really. Do I have the time to read? Everyone says they don't, but sure, I could read instead of scrolling on my phone or watching YouTube videos like this one. So did it turn me into a lifelong reader? The answer to that is no. And to be clear, again, I actually started researching and filming this video because I have really good memories of the AR program. That nostalgia hits me hard in a good way. It's just that if we're gonna overanalyze something, we have to consider all the angles. Now, there's another contingent. the kids who actually would have been happier reading on their own without the quizzes or who were already stressed about reading. You can find this all over. Bringing an element of points and competition into something that someone wasn't necessarily naturally proficient at, and the results could be turning those kids off of reading altogether. One teacher commented that the AR program can be really disheartening for students who aren't good test takers or who struggle with reading comprehension, i.e., kids that needed even more encouragement in learning to read that were then almost being doubly punished. Firstly, in finding it difficult in the first place, and secondly, in the stress of being forced to take tests on the books they read. Someone else commented about their past as an AR student and that they remember it being awful as a slow reader and someone with a disability who has slow processing times and needs to read lines over and over to process the meaning. Of course, in school, you often have to take tests for comprehension regardless of which side of the bell curve you're on when it comes to proficiency at reading. But the difference with the AR program was that it essentially brought reading for pleasure under the umbrella of taking tests and getting points. So students would be encouraged to check out AR books from the library and would spend their time reading only these books specifically approved for accelerated reader with accompanying quizzes. Taking a test in school in a subject that you're not great in is one thing. Many of us have subjects where we may have struggled more than others or been further behind, but AR would eat up all of your free reading time, thus giving little options for kids who would have been more happier and more voracious readers in the future if they didn't have the additional test-taking stress attached to every book they read. Then you've got the really sad anecdotes that almost made me cry about someone's son being placed in the hallway while the students in the classroom had a party for their AR scores because he didn't have enough. I mean, reward the kids who are succeeding in your program by all means, but send them to the party when the other kids are at specials, or let them have lunch with the principal while the other kids enjoy lunch as normal. Why are we putting kids in hallways as a punishment because they didn't get enough AR points? I would also take a wild guess that those students who succeeded at AR have a much higher chance that they have a home environment that encourages reading and allows time for it. Much of AR reading is done outside of the classroom, even if there is some silent reading time built into the school day. And the kids who are maybe disadvantaged economically or have other things going on at home, meaning they're in busier or hectic environments, they maybe can't snuggle in with the latest War and Peace to get their AR points. And then there's another set of kids who were impacted by AR in later years when many schools implemented the rule that you had to read at or around your AR level. Back when I was in the program, I don't remember any stipulations on the level we could read at. If I wanted to check out an AR book that was for high school reading level when I was 9, then I was allowed to do that. I don't think my experience in AR would have been at all enjoyable if that hadn't had been the case. I also remember reading books that were way below my level at times, but the point was, I was reading. I was really surprised then to learn that a lot of kids hated the program because they were pigeonholed into only being allowed to read books that were on their reading level or something very close to it. I say allowed because, of course, at home your parents could buy you whatever books you wanted, but a child's world is very much centered on what happens in and around school. And for many kids, the school library was the place they would check out books. This was where the books were color-coded for the AR levels and where you would go with your class to pick out the next books that you were going to read. So it did very much feel like you weren't allowed to read the things you wanted because often the librarian or teacher flat out wouldn't let you check those books out if they were too high or too low for your supposed level. So then you get memories like I hated it, the forced reading, especially books I didn't like because the ones I did were too high reading level, made me hate and stop reading. Also, someone says hated it. They defaulted our reading level, so I never actually read the books because they were way too low level for me. Kids who wanted to read up or read books higher than their supposed reading level were often told no. That doesn't really seem like a way to foster a love of reading, but I'm no expert. Now let's get to the best part of all of this deep diving, the seedy underbelly of AR tests. Forget the academic studies about reading incentive programs. Forget the philosophical questions about how to develop lifelong readers. Some of you guys were straight up treating your AR tests like an episode of Survivor, and I am obsessed with all the confessions I found on what I'm calling the AR game players. The first type of game player we have is the kids who cheated on their AR tests by just having other people take the test. Someone said, I remember helping my high school girlfriend cheat on a Hunt for Red October test. I sat behind her in the library while she took the test before school. This is sort of the first tier of cheating, being physically present while someone takes the test to feed them the answers. I also read stories of someone doing the test while her brother was in the room because he had just read the Harry Potter book and knew the answers, and she wanted the points because she wanted to go to Chuck E. Cheese. The fact, in general, that kids were coming up with ways to cheat on the AR test also shows us that maybe they were too focused on the points and prizes than actually, reading the book yourself. But it gets juicier. This person says, kids would pay me to sign into their accounts and take AR tests for them because I was top earner 2 years in a row. Literally, someone was running an entrepreneurial startup well before it was popular to make money taking AR tests for other kids. This is so funny, and I hope this person put their skills in reading and running a business to good use in the future. I'm just imagining kids slipping each other dollar bills on the playground and logging details for their AR test, and it's just insane. Then sometimes the entire class would get in on the scam, with someone sharing, "Would you believe my 4th grade class had an AR cheating scandal? My teacher was obsessed with points, ding ding ding, so of course we all took tests for one another. Then she found out and canceled the field trip." Oh, we believe it. Our next type of AR game player is the person who watched the movies or TV shows but didn't read the book and still passed the test. This is actually genius, and this woman has the best story about how she racked up so many points.
What happened was I got some That's So Raven and Hannah Montana books from the store, and while I was reading them, I realized that they were scene-for-scene adaptations of episodes from the show. So I took the test for the books I read and I passed them, but then I thought, hey, what if I just take these other tests for the books I didn't read because I saw the episodes? Now, I don't think this was cheating because it's not like I had the books open next to me while I was taking the test or someone was telling me the answers. I just didn't need to read the books to pass the test. You could maybe say it was unethical, but that's accelerated readers' fault for putting novelizations of Disney Channel episodes on their program.
After explaining her method, she then goes on to justify her position and that she wasn't actually doing anything wrong, which I totally agree with. Though it does make me smile that all of these years later, she still feels like she's in a court of law when defending her methods of passing her AR tests. I'm not calling this one cheating, it's just definitely gameplay. Now, then there's our third type of AR game player, the saboteur, and those people do scare me a bit more. Example of this type of person is someone who said, "Me and this kid had the same amount of points, so I logged into his account and failed a bunch of tests on purpose to secure my win." Okay, Tanya Harding, nothing like a little bit of fraud in the morning to get to your AR pizza party. But that's kind of the point. Kids are always scheming, but clearly the AR program created an environment rife with backdoor dealings, watching the movies instead of the book, literally hacking other people's accounts to try and tear them down, and in my case, reading as many easy books as possible in order to take the test quicker and rack up more points. A program that's supposed to foster a love for reading and develop lifelong readers should surely feel less like a trip to the Big Brother house, should it not? As I mentioned at the start of this video, AR hasn't actually gone anywhere. It's still used in schools across America, still with some students who are absolutely crushing it and winning all the prizes at the expense of future therapy sessions, and some who are being turned off reading altogether. Some teachers absolutely hate it, some try to use it for positive gains, some parents hate it, and some people think it does encourage their kids to read more than they would otherwise. It seems that the key here is how it's implemented. You can use the AR program with no prize incentives, just using it to keep track of students' learning. And of course, you can make it open, so kids could read any book at any level, which is much better than restricting them. The AR program allowed me to shine in elementary school at something I was extremely good at, reading and recall, but I recognize it's not the same for everyone and is one of the more nuanced nostalgia topics that I would love to hear your thoughts on. Were you an AR success story or did it turn you off reading? Let me know in the comments below, and thanks very much for joining me for this video.